Farfallina and Marcel by Holly Keller. And this is a Charlotte Zolato Award book. And I wonder what it's about. Let's see. Farfallina and Marcel. The rain fell all morning. It splattered on the pond and splashed on Farfallina's leaf. She found a dry spot and ate it. Look, she's eating it. Chomp, 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 chomp. And Farfallina looks like what kind of animal? You're right, a caterpillar. Hey, said a little voice, you're eating my umbrella. Farfallina peered over the edge. A small gray bird was huddled underneath. Farfallina liked his soft feathers and his gentle eyes. I'm Farfallina, she said, and she slid down to the ground. My name is Marcel, said the bird. He liked Farfallina's smile and her pretty colors. So the caterpillar, Farfallina, uses the leaf as something to eat. She uses that for food. And Marcel uses it for an umbrella to hide away from the rain and probably the sun when it's too hot. The rain turned to drizzle and Farfallina wanted to play. I'll hide and you find me, she said. Marcel agreed. Farfallina hid under a fern close to the ground because she knew that Marcel couldn't climb. Now I'll hide, said Marcel when he found her, and he hid right behind the tree because he knew that Farfallina moved slowly. So he didn't hide too far because he didn't want her to have to go so far because she moved pretty slowly. She had little legs. So he was being a good friend. I can take you for a ride on the pond, said Marcel. Farfallina inched her way up to Marcel's back. You tickle, said Marcel, and he slipped into the water. Farfallina giggled. There's so much to see, she said. She was so excited that he gave her a ride down the pond, down to look at the lily pads and the frogs and the leaves and the trees and probably other animals that they seen. Marcel was being a good friend and gave her a ride down the pond because caterpillars can't swim. Farfallina and Marcel played together every day. They liked the same games and they liked each other. But one day, Farfallina was not herself. I'm not sick, she told Marcel. Just a little uncomfortable. I need to climb up onto a branch and rest for a little while. I'll wait for you, Marcel called as Farfallina made her way up the tree. Marcel watched until Farfallina was completely out of sight. Then he settled himself in the grass and waited. He's such a good friend. He waited for her because she wasn't feeling well. What other things can you do for a friend that's not feeling well? Night came and then morning, but Farfallina didn't come down. Marcel called to her, Farfallina! But she didn't answer. He was very worried and terribly lonely. Weeks went by. The afternoons grew longer and warmer, and Marcel went to the pond. See the pond? He was growing, and when he looked at his reflection in the water, he hardly recognized himself. In this picture, he's white, and in this picture, he's brown and gray. And he sees his reflection, and he doesn't recognize himself. He's different. Because sometimes when we grow up, we look different. Sometimes we act differently and talk differently. He went back to the tree every day to look for Farfallina, but she was never there. And after a while, he gave up. At the top of the tree, Farfallina was snuggled in a blanket of glossy silk. She was growing too. Do you see her? There's the silk. It's called a cocoon. And he's looking underneath the grass. He's trying to find her. And underneath the ferns and the flowers, he's trying to find her, but he can't find her because she's all the way up in the tree. She's in a cocoon. Because a caterpillar turns into a cocoon. And I wonder, after the cocoon, so it's the caterpillar, then it's the cocoon. And then what happens after the cocoon? Wonder. Let's find out. The sky was blue and clear the morning. The morning she was ready to come out and open her beautiful wings. What has wings? Do caterpillars? Here's her cocoon, and she opened it up, and she can't wait to see her wings. She had no idea how long she had been in there, up in the tree, and she floated down to find Marcel. I'll just wait, said Farfallina when she didn't see him, and she sat on the flower. This is Farfallina. So she went from a caterpillar, she formed a cocoon around her, and she turned into a caterpillar that has wings. It's a pretty caterpillar, or a pretty butterfly. Butterfly has wings. Night came and then morning, but Marcel wasn't there. Farfallina was tired and she was confused. She fluttered around a bit and went to the pond. The pond was glassy smooth, except for the ripples made by a large, handsome goose who was swimming in solitary circles. Farfallina shivered with disappointment. She sees the goose, but she doesn't think that's Marcel. Is it Marcel? Yes, it is. But Marcel changed just like Farfallina did. So do you think they'll recognize each other? You know, when you see family that you haven't seen for a while, sometimes they look differently, right? Or they have their hair different, or they have hats on that they didn't have before, or they cut their hair and it doesn't look like it's the same, or they wear makeup when they didn't wear makeup. So people change all the time. He went to the pond every day to look for the small gray bird named Marcel, but he never came. One morning, the goose stopped his silent rounds and spoke to her. "You must like it here," he said. Farfallina fluttered a bit. "I've been waiting for a friend," said Farfallina sadly, "but I don't think he'll come." So they talked to each other, but they didn't recognize each other's voices. So their voices must have changed too with their appearance. Marcel liked her smile and her brilliant colors. "I know how you feel," he said. "I lost a friend too. She just vanished into thin air." Farfallina liked his sleek feathers and his gentle eyes. "A ride around the pond might cheer you up," Marcel said. Farfallina thought it would, and she settled herself on Marcel's back. Do you think that will give Farfallina a clue that it's Marcel because Marcel had her ride on his back before? It's funny, Marcel said, but I feel as though I've known you for a long time. I was just thinking the same thing, Farfallina said. My name is Farfallina. What's yours? Marcel stopped suddenly. He beat the water with his strong wings. Then he swam around and around and around. It's me, Farfallina, he shouted. It's me, Marcel. Is that really you? It is, Farfallina shouted back. They looked at each other and laughed. They didn't recognize each other. They thought it was funny. And now they're reacquainted. They're reunited. By evening, they had explained everything and they fell asleep, smiling at the stars. What a great story, huh? They found each other after a long overdue reunion. Farfallina and Marcel spent the rest of the summer playing just as they had before. Marcel was careful not to fly too fast because he knew that Farfallina couldn't keep up. Farfallina didn't hide in the flowers because she knew that Marcel would never find her. And when the leaves on the trees around the pond turned red and gold, like they did here before winter came, they decided to go south. And you see their shadows right there? Together. They flew south together because they were good friends. And that's Farfallina and Marcel.